All right. Welcome back, guys. Again, this is Antonio Diaz,
Deshaun Panaka.
and we're Stone Mountain Films. This is just our journey of getting into the film industry and taking it over by storm.
Starting a movie production company.
That's right. That's right. So, what we wanted to do is we just recently finished shooting a film that we wrote called Real Talk. It's a short film. And what we wanted to do is really walk you through the steps that we did in order to get this thing, on film. And so, again, me and Deshaun worked together with coming up with a script. We used our technique as far as coming up with ideas and using, just each other bouncing ideas off each other to get the screen, completed, right? So now we got a completed script. So now it's time to shoot it. So Deshaun, so you could just talk to the folks in reference to what was the first step we did to
Yeah. So
get it done.
after there were some challenges and stuff along the way.
Oh yeah.
Real brief, I could tell you that first challenge was kind of narrowing it down because we had a lot of ideas. There were a lot of things, man, that some of them we had already completed. We had completed actually a series, but the budget it was going to be a bigger budget, and we were like, we want to make sure that we do that one right, and we have the budget for it. So let's just still produce a good story, but something that doesn't require that big of a budget. So then we narrowed it down, and then after we got it written, then we started talking about, okay, what's the steps to get us to production? So we came up with a tentative budget. And that's Antonio's friend back there talking. Y'all don't hear him. We came up with a tentative budget, right? And in order to find out what that budget is, what we did was we started researching. Excuse me. What we're gonna need? We're gonna need a location, right? We're gonna need a camera operator, and we looked at the different people that we need. I mean, if you watch a Hollywood movie or even a movie made in Atlanta or New York, if you look at the credits, you can see all the folks who worked on that movie. Some of them, that list is long. It might be 100. So a little bit of background before Antonio and I formed Stone Mountain Films. I actually worked behind the scenes. Well, no, behind the scenes. I was a background actor for a Disney movie that was shot here in Atlanta called Our Life of Timothy Green. I saw firsthand, man. I mean, people like Jennifer Garner was in that movie. I sat next to her and we talked a little bit. Um, Common sat next to Common doing one scene, the rapper Common, the artist Common, if you don't know him, the actor. And there were some other folks who I don't remember by name, but they're pretty well known actors. But it gave me a background that I saw how many cameras they had. I saw how many people they had working on lighting. I saw how many makeup artists. I was able to see a lot of that. And I'm like, whoa. So if you want to do something that grand of a scale, you can. But Antonio are like, look here, man, we ain't trying to do that. How can we do something professional, but do something that we can afford to do? So we came up with that tentative budget, right? And then, we did a lot of research. Also, we didn't claim to know everything. So we getting advice from others. We're looking at interviews on what is the bare bones that you're gonna need to make a good short movie. And once we did that, then we started saying, okay, we need to A, have auditions for our actors, and B, we need to interview our crew members, right? Our camera operator, people for lighting, people for sound, people for makeup, all of that. We need to interview and talk to these folks. So that was the next step for us, is to, put it all down on the list and then start going out and seeking those people.
Yep. And so first thing we did was we held auditions,
For our
right,
actors.
for our actors and actresses.
Mm-hmm.
And so we was able to have it at the Grand Hyatt in Buckhead.
We rented a room.
Rented a room, and so we had individuals come in and audition for us, and we had it definitely set up, professional. We had it recorded so that way we can go back
And review.
and review. We also had individuals do auditions separately.
Right. If they couldn't make it, they
They
were
couldn't
able
make
to
it.
record their own self-recorded audition.
They would send it in, and we would get together and then go over it. So once we selected our actors, and even one of our actresses, we had to train.
Oh yeah. So what happened was we ended up having to change the shoot date. We had a shoot date all set up, and then something came up and we had to reschedule.
Right.
So we let everyone know, the crew, the actors, and at that time everybody said, okay, when are you tentatively wanting to reshoot? We said, well, give us 2 months. They were like, cool, we're on. All right, we can all do it. when the 2 months came, actually maybe a month and a half into it, we had to push back again. Our lead actress, she had other engagements. She says, "No,
Right.
I can't. The date that you gave me for to reschedule, I can do it then, but I can't do it, a month or two after that." So we had to replace her.
Right.
But it was somebody we had
We
already had an addition.
we had an audition with. She was
Yeah.
our second choice.
Yeah.
So, which she gracefully accepted. And so that's how we did as far as the actors. Now on the production side,
The crew.
we found
Oh, we went to Backstage.
Backstage.
Yeah, I'm telling you, use Backstage. And there are other places you can use. There's like Actors Access and other stuff. But we use Backstage, and I tell you what, it was wonderful to use.
Yeah.
It make it easier. You don't have to go trying to run ads. No. If you use it, I'm telling you, you register with the website. It's very intuitive. It's going to tell you, what you need to do. It's kind of like they're going to interview you, through the process, ask the questions, and then it's like a database. I mean, you want to find actors on there, actresses, camera operators,
Everything.
audio, sound mixers.
Mm-hmm.
And so Antonio and I went through the list. You can filter it by, where they live, what type of equipment they have, so on and so forth. And so then that narrowed it down to a pretty still long list. And we started looking at people's reels, which is basically their resume. You look at if they're a camera operator, you can see stuff that they've worked on. If they're an actor, you can see them acting in things.
And please utilize folks that have previous work.
Yes,
that makes your life a lot easier. So that's
Absolutely.
how we found our production, team. On there. Matter of fact, it was the first guy that we actually liked. We ended up using
because we narrowed it down to I think 4.
Yeah, like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So, but we was able to get him, and he was definitely a godsend because he had a whole crew. And then we had a mutual friend of ours, another brother. He allowed us to use his house. We scheduled it
for our location.
You know what I mean? And we showed up and shot our film in one day. Which I definitely wouldn't suggest as the blueprint, but that's what we had to do in reference to with our budget and everybody's schedule. And so we just completed that, and which that was for us just a wonderful experience, because man, it allowed us to get something completed and to go from a dream to a finished product. So it just was huge for us, and so we'll definitely talk about post production and how
another
that
episode.
in another episode. But yeah, that's how we started from a script until we actually got it shot.
It's all done. Yeah, and I will say this to you, throwing in another gem out there. So there's something called analysis paralysis, right? And I remember Antonio had this conversation. So we started Stone Mountain Films back in 2023. So it's 2025. We're going on our second anniversary pretty soon here, 2 years. But I remember he and I would talk about that, and he would say, "Hey, man, it's good that we're talking about ideas, but I don't want us to get stuck because I'm an analytical person at times, not just creative." And he said, "Man, you can get stuck. I know you, brother. I love you, so I'm telling you as a friend. I don't want us to just get stuck and keep talking about ideas, because you want something to be perfect, or even as you're going through the process, right? The writing process. You want to put your best foot forward. We always want to do that as a company, but at the same time, you can try to want something so perfect that 6 months later, you're still stuck on the same thing because you're trying to tweak every little thing and you haven't moved forward. Like you said, you don't have a completed product. I can tell you that I'm very happy with the movie as it's finished. Antonio is too, but I had to learn how to, over this process with him and this company, to kind of relax a little bit and not be so, every I got to be dotted, every T got to be crossed. There's a time for that, but sometimes you got to trust the process, right? Trust your partner and not want to control everything, because that's really what a lot of it was for me. That when I was doing this by myself, it was so much I could control everything, control. But sometimes you gotta. I don't know if you know what faith is, if you have any faith, but sometimes you gotta have faith, right? Because there was something with our budget. He and I, it's for sake of a time, we can get more into it maybe another episode. But our budget came. We didn't know the budget was gonna come the way it did, right? Because I told you we came up with the budget, but the funds We like, okay, it started at one thing, then it grew a little bit
Yeah,
more,
yeah,
and then we were like, well, the first one was already. We said we're gonna go out and get investors. We tried to invest the thing, and people were kind of like, we interested, but this ain't a good time for me. I don't have the money. I just did this. I just did that. So we're like, okay, what we gonna do? Then something that he and I both didn't plan for happened. I was like, Antonio. He said, what? I said, man, guess what happened, boy? This money came.
right.
I could tell it was a settlement. It was a settlement for me. I had an injury settlement. And it wasn't anything I was planning because initially when I got injured, I wasn't seeking money. I just wanted treatment, right, for my health. But that settlement ended up coming through, I mean, like right at the right time. I had no idea it was going to be at that time or the amount it was, right? And then Antonio also had some money come his way. So I'm saying that to say sometimes you do the work,
Right.
but have some trust and some faith in the Almighty.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, He gonna put you where you need to be. Gonna put you in the right direction. You doing your part.
And that's what it was, right? God blessed our faith, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we, our budget. We, like I said, we had some issues, but God blessed, and that's the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing is put your best foot forward.
Mm-hmm.
Get your project completed on paper,
Mm-hmm.
and watch what happens. So if you looking at it, man, I don't want to start it because I don't have the money. Look, don't worry about that. God will handle that.
Mm-hmm.
And so definitely.
One last thing, and I'm telling you, we might get. He and I talk about whether we want to share what our budget was. We'll have a discussion about that. But it's not as much as if you haven't been doing this long, or you don't know the financial part of it. It's with the technology today, with the community of people that are around today. It doesn't take as much money as you think it would, right? Like what we spent, honestly, if you would ask me 10 years ago, I'd laugh and say, no, it's going to take more than that. No, it doesn't take what you think. You don't have to break the bank. You don't have to, get a second mortgage. You don't have to go get home equity lines of credits and all that. It doesn't. So I'll leave that there.
All right. So, again, guys, thanks for tuning in for this episode. Please like, subscribe, and join us on our journey as we get into the film industry.
All right, this is Stone Mountain Films. We thank you so much for tuning in.